Today, March 6th, is not an ordinary date on the calendar. It is not just another sunrise or another page turned in your routine life. There are days that pass quietly, and there are days that are marked in the spirit long before you ever wake up. Today is marked. Today carries weight. And I need you to hear this with spiritual attention. On this very day, Archangel Michael stands before you holding a golden envelope with your name written on it. Not someone else's name. Not a general blessing floating in the air. Your name. And what rests inside that envelope is something so unexpected, so undeserved by human standards, that it disrupts logic itself. It contains the deed to a house you didn't pay for, and the command attached to it is urgent. Open it immediately. This is not poetry. This is not symbolic comfort. This is a prophetic interruption. Why March 6th? Because heaven works with appointed times. There are moments when decisions in the unseen realm reach a point of release. There are dates that become delivery days. And today is a delivery day. The image of Archangel Michael is not accidental. He is not wondering. He is not observing from a distance. He is standing, holding something tangible, something prepared, something authorized. And the envelope is gold for a reason. Gold represents covenant. Gold represents royalty. Gold represents what cannot be corrupted. What he is holding is not temporary. It is not fragile. It is not symbolic of something that fades next week. It is sealed with permanence. But here is what makes this moment even more shocking. You did not pay for what is inside. Everything in this world teaches you that ownership requires payment. Work harder. Save longer. Qualify. Earn it. Prove yourself. Yet today's message breaks that pattern. The deed inside this golden envelope carries your name, but it does not carry your effort. It carries grace. And that is why this moment feels almost unbelievable. Because deep down, part of you is asking, how can something like this belong to me if I did not pay for it? That question reveals something important. You have been conditioned to believe that blessing must match labor, that inheritance must match qualification, that favor must be earned. But heaven's economy does not function like earth's economy. There are moments when what you could not buy is given. There are seasons when what you could not qualify for is assigned. And today is one of those moments. This house you didn't pay for is not just wood and walls. It represents stability where there was instability. It represents security where there was uncertainty. It represents rest after wandering. Some of you have been spiritually homeless, not physically without shelter, but emotionally unsettled, financially strained, uncertain about where you truly belong. You have felt like you were surviving instead of settling, building other people's visions while your own foundation felt delayed. But today, heaven is announcing a shift from survival to settlement. And that is why the instruction says, open it immediately. Delay has already taken enough from you. Hesitation has already cost you time. Fear has already whispered too many lies. This is not the hour to stand back and analyze whether you deserve it. This is the hour to respond. Because the envelope is not just being presented, it is being offered. And offers require acceptance. Some of you have prayed quietly for something you barely had the courage to say out loud. Stability. A place of your own. A season where you are no longer scrambling. A breakthrough that feels solid, not temporary. You asked for relief, but what is being handed to you is establishment. You asked for help, but what is being handed to you is ownership. And that difference is everything. Archangel Michael holding this envelope signals something else as well. This blessing was protected. It was guarded. It was defended. There were battles you never saw. There were accusations you never heard. There were delays that were not denials but spiritual processes. And now the moment of transfer has arrived. Today is not random. March 6th is not casual. It is a line drawn between what was and what will be. The golden envelope is not drifting. It is directed. And your name is not written lightly, it is written intentionally. You may feel unprepared. You may feel unworthy. You may feel surprised. But this is not about your readiness. It is about divine timing. And when divine timing aligns, resistance breaks, doors open, and deeds are transferred. The question is not whether the envelope is real. The question is whether you will open it. Because once you do, everything changes. Why is Archangel Michael personally delivering this? Why is this not handed to a lesser messenger? Why is this moment so guarded, so deliberate, so direct? Because what is being transferred to you did not come without resistance. Archangel Michael is not just any angelic figure. He is known in the spiritual realm as a defender, a warrior, a commander over heavenly armies. When he moves, it is not casual. When he stands, it is not symbolic. His presence signals that something valuable has been contested. Something significant has required protection. And today, as he stands holding that golden envelope with your name on it, understand this clearly. This blessing has been fought for. There are things in your life that seem delayed without explanation. Doors that almost opened but didn't. Opportunities that looked promising but slipped away. Moments when you felt close to breakthrough, only to experience silence. You may have blamed timing. You may have blamed people. You may have even blamed yourself. But what if the delay was not about your failure? What if it was about warfare? Because inheritances attract opposition. When something carries your name and your future, it becomes a target. The unseen realm recognizes potential before you do. The stability represented by that house, the peace, the security, the generational shift, was not small. And anything that carries generational impact will always encounter resistance. That is why Michael is the one delivering it. His presence is proof that this was not a simple transaction. It was a defended promise. Think about that for a moment. While you were sleeping, heaven was strategizing. While you were doubting, heaven was defending. While you were wondering if it would ever happen, a battle was being settled in your favor. And now the season of fighting over it has ended. The season of handing it to you has begun. But here is something even deeper. Michael does not only fight against something, he stands for someone. And today, he stands for you. That golden envelope in his hand is not just a document. It is a verdict. It is the confirmation that what was argued about has now been resolved. The resistance did not win. The accusations did not stick. The delay did not cancel the destiny. This is why the delivery is personal. Because what is being released is not random favor. It is protected inheritance. Some of you have felt unusually tired in recent months. Not just physically, spiritually tired. As if you were pushing against invisible pressure. As if progress required double the effort. That weight was not imagined. When something large is about to shift in your life, pressure often increases before release. The opposition senses movement before you see it. But once the decree is finalized, the pressure lifts, and the transfer happens quickly. That is where you are now. The golden envelope is in Michael's hand because this blessing required authority to enforce it. It required strength to guard it. and it required divine permission to release it. Now all three have aligned, and I need to say this clearly. This is not about ego. This is not about pride. This is about positioning. You are being repositioned from uncertainty to ownership, from waiting to receiving, from defending yourself to being defended. If this message is speaking directly into your spirit, if something inside you feels stirred, awakened, almost recognized, then don't stay silent. Engage with it. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Subscribe to this channel if you know you are stepping into a season of divine transfer. Share this message with someone who hath been in a long battle for stability. And in the comments, declare boldly, I receive what heaven has defended for me. Your engagement is not just activity, it is alignment. When you respond in faith, you participate in the release. Because silence often partners with doubt, but declaration partners with destiny. Understand something powerful. The fact that Michael is delivering it means the fight is over. You are not being called into battle for this house. You are being called into acceptance. The war was behind you. The envelope is before you. And here is the part many people miss. When a warrior angel delivers instead of fights, it signals that enforcement is already complete. The opposition hath been restrained. The objections have been overruled. The atmosphere has been cleared. This is not a fragile blessing. It is secured. And the reason it feels sudden is because heaven often works quietly until the exact moment of unveiling. There was movement long before there was manifestation. There was strategy long before there was visibility. And now, March 6th, becomes the visible point of an invisible process that has been unfolding for longer than you realize. The golden envelope is not floating in uncertainty. It is being held by authority. And authority does not release what has not been approved. So if you have been questioning whether your time would come to this, it has. If you have been wondering whether the battle was worth it, hear this, it was. And if you have been asking whether heaven truly sees your struggle, look at who is standing before you now. The delivery is personal. The protection was intentional. And the release is final. Now let us step closer to the mystery itself, the golden envelope. Why gold? Why not silver? Why not white? Why not something simple and plain? Because gold does not rust. Gold does not decay. Gold survives fire. In the language of heaven, gold represents covenant, royalty, permanence, and something refined through pressure. The envelope in Archangel Michael's hand is not casual packaging. It is a statement. What is inside is not temporary relief. It is enduring establishment. And then there is your name written on it. Not scribbled. Not partially erased. Not mistakenly assigned. Your name is written with divine precision. That means this is not a general promise floating over a crowd. It is intentional. It is personal. Heaven is not confused about who this belongs to. There is no clerical error in the spirit. The deed inside matches the name outside. But here is where the mystery deepens. You didn't pay for it. That truth unsettles the human mind because everything in this world revolves around earning, qualifying, and striving. You have been taught that ownership demands sacrifice from you. That if you want something stable, you must exhaust yourself for it. That if you want security, you must carry the burden alone. Yet this golden envelope breaks that narrative completely. This deed carries your name, but it carries someone else's payment. That is why it is wrapped in gold, because it is sealed in grace. There are blessings that come as wages, and there are blessings that come as inheritance. Wages respond to effort. Inheritance responds to identity. And today, what is being handed to you is not a paycheck. It is an inheritance. You are not receiving this house because you worked enough hours in the spirit. You are receiving it because you are recognized as rightful. Let that sink in. Some of you have lived in survival mode for so long that rest feels suspicious. Stability feels unfamiliar. When something good approaches, you instinctively search for the hidden cost. You ask, what will this require from me? But the golden envelope is heaven's way of saying, the cost has already been handled. That does not mean you never struggled. It does not mean you never sacrificed. It does not mean you never endured. But it does mean that the final price for this level of establishment was not yours to pay. And this is where many hesitate, because accepting grace requires humility. It requires releasing the need to prove yourself. It requires letting go of the belief that you must earn every good thing that enters your life. The envelope is gold because it reflects divine generosity, not human calculation. But there is something else hidden in this mystery. Gold is refined in fire, and some of you have just come through a fiery season. Pressure exposed weaknesses. Delays tested your patience. Silence stretched your faith. You wondered why things were heating up instead of settling down. But what if the fire was not there to destroy you? What if it was refining you so you could carry what is now being handed to you? Because inheritance without maturity becomes mismanagement. The reason this envelope is being placed in your reach now is because something inside you has shifted. You are not who you were last year. You are not reacting the way you once reacted. You are not chasing the same distractions. There has been quiet growth, hidden strengthening, internal alignment, and heaven responds to readiness. The golden envelope is not just proof of grace. It is proof of timing. And here is something unexpected. Some people around you may not understand this transfer. They may question how you qualified. They may whisper about favoritism. They may assume shortcuts. But what they did not see was the refining. What they did not witness was the unseen battle. What they did not endure was your private surrender. The deed inside is legally yours in the spirit before it ever manifests in the natural. This is why the instruction remains urgent. Open it immediately. Delay in this moment is not humility. It is hesitation. And hesitation can cause you to stand outside what already belongs to you. The envelope is not locked. It is sealed, but it is meant to be opened. The seal represents authorization, not restriction. And here is your retention reminder, because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you understood about ownership and transfer. The moment you open this envelope, something shifts not only around you, but within you. The next revelation changes how you see your past and your future. You will want to understand what happens when acceptance activates enforcement. Before we move further, I want to seal this part with a prophetic act. If this message resonates with your spirit, if you sense that grace is rewriting your story, then declare it boldly. Type "Grace has signed my deed" in the comments if this resonates with you. Lesson code 316 is now activated. This is not superstition. It is agreement. When you declare, you align. When you align, you receive. And now, as we stand before this golden envelope together, understand this: what is inside is not charity. It is covenant. It is not luck. It is legality. It is not random. It is win. The mystery is not whether you deserve it. The mystery is whether you are ready to open what has already been assigned. And what happens next will reveal why this house could never be purchased by you in the first place. As this revelation settles into your spirit, Understand something sacred. This message is not just reaching you by chance. It is flowing like oil, like a river of light meant to touch thousands who are still wandering in uncertainty. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, the link waiting in the description and the QR code appearing on your screen, you are not supporting a channel. You are sowing into souls. Scripture declares, "Give, and it will be given to you." And this is not ancient ink on paper. It is God speaking life over your seed right now. When you release your gift, you become part of the harvest of stability and restoration being released through this word. I feel led to say this plainly. I am inviting you to stand with this mission as a covenant partner in this hour. Do not let this moment pass as ordinary generosity. Treat it as prophetic obedience. As you sow, may your own house be established, may your own doors open, and may your own golden envelope arrive without delay. Step into this act of faith now and seal what heaven has begun. Now we must confront the question that has been quietly forming in your mind. What is this house you didn't pay for truly representing? Yes, it can manifest in the physical. Yes, it can become literal walls, literal land, literal ownership papers. But before it ever becomes something you can walk into with your natural feet, it is something you must understand with your spirit. Because heaven never releases a structure without first establishing a foundation inside you. A house represents stability. It represents a fixed address after seasons of wandering. It represents belonging after years of feeling temporary. It represents security after long stretches of uncertainty. And for many listening to this, the real exhaustion in your life has not been physical, it has been the instability, the constant adjusting, the constant bracing, the constant wondering if what you are building will last. You may have smiled publicly, but privately you felt unsettled, like you were living in transition, like nothing was fully yours, like you were camping in spaces instead of occupying them. That feeling was not random. It was the residue of a season that was never meant to be permanent. The house in the golden envelope represents the end of that wandering. There are seasons where you are called to move, to stretch, to grow, to adapt. But there are also seasons where you are called to plant, to establish, to root. And what is being handed to you now is not a tent. It is a foundation. It is not a temporary covering. It is a secured dwelling. This is why it says you didn't pay for it. Because the shift from wandering to establishment is not something you could have manufactured through effort alone. You could work hard and still feel unstable. You can plan carefully and still feel uncertain. But when heaven decides it is time for you to settle, doors align in ways that a human strategy cannot replicate. The house also represents legacy. A house is not just about shelter. It is about what continues after you. It is about generational impact. It is about something that remains standing when storms come. Some of you have been the cycle breaker in your family, the one who absorbed pressure so the next generation would not have to, the one who endured confusion so clarity could follow. And because of that, what is being handed to you carries more than personal comfort. It carries generational correction. The instability that followed your bloodline stops with you. That is why this deed matters so deeply. It is not just about your comfort. It is about your children, your family, your spiritual descendants walking into a stability that was once unfamiliar to your lineage. You are not just receiving a house. You are rewriting a pattern. And then there is other dimension. The house represents identity. When someone asks, "Where do you live?" they are not only asking for a location. They are asking for belonging, for grounding, for rootedness. Many of you have struggled not because you lacked talent, not because you lacked intelligence, but because you lacked a sense of spiritual rootedness. You felt called but not anchored, gifted but not settled. The deed inside that envelope represents clarity of place. It is heaven saying, "This is where you stand. This is what you occupy. This is what belongs to you." And once you know where you stand, your confidence changes. Your decisions change. Your posture changes. You stop negotiating with uncertainty because you know you have ground beneath your feet. This house also represents rest, not laziness, not passivity, but rest from striving, rest from proving, rest from chasing validation. There is a difference between working from insecurity and working from establishment. When you are insecure, you work to survive. When you are established, you work from overflow, and heaven is shifting you into overflow. That is why you did not pay for it, because if you had paid for it in full through your own strength, you would feel ownership mixed with exhaustion. But when grace establishes you, ownership feels like peace. It feels aligned. It feels supported. The house is also protection. A house shields you from storms. It creates boundaries. It defines what is allowed in and what must stay out. Some of you have been spiritually exposed for too long, too accessible, too unguarded, too vulnerable to outside pressures. This transfer marks a shift into covering, into boundaries, into divine protection that stabilizes your environment. You are not meant to live in constant exposure. And here is something profound. When heaven hands you a house you didn't pay for, it is not just blessing you, it is repositioning you. Because where you dwell determines what you see. What you see determines how you think. And how you think determines how you move. Your environment is changing so your mindset can expand. The house represents permanence after impermanence, ownership after borrowing, settlement after delay. And once you understand that, you stop seeing this envelope as symbolic inspiration. You begin seeing it as strategic transformation. You are being established, not temporarily lifted, not briefly encouraged. Established. And when establishment arrives, everything unstable begins to lose its grip. The fear of tomorrow weakens. The anxiety about provision quiets. The sense of floating without direction fades. Because now you have ground. The golden envelope was never just about property. It was about position. It was about identity. It was about legacy. It was about rest. It was about protection. And as this understanding settles in your spirit, you begin to realize something powerful. You are not stepping into something fragile. You are stepping into something built to last. And now we must address something that many avoid, but you cannot ignore if you want to fully understand this moment. Who tried to block this transfer? Because whenever something significant is assigned to your name, opposition does not remain silent. The golden envelope did not appear without contention. The deed inside it was not uncontested. There were voices in the unseen realm that argued against your worthiness. There were accusations whispered about your past mistakes. There were reminders of your weaknesses, your delays, your failures. The opposition's strategy has always been the same: disqualify before destiny manifests. And some of you felt that pressure without even knowing why. There were seasons when old memories resurfaced unexpectedly. Seasons when shame tried to revisit you. Moments when you questioned whether you had ruined your chances. That was not random insecurity. That was accusation attempting to build a case. Because the easiest way to stop someone from receiving what belongs to them is to convince them they don't deserve it. Understand this clearly. The delay you experienced was not proof of denial. It was evidence of dispute. There is imagery in the spirit of a courtroom, not one of chaos, but one of order. In that courtroom, your past was presented. Your missteps were listed. Your doubts were examined. The opposition attempted to argue that someone like you should not be entrusted with stability, inheritance, establishment. It pointed to moments when you almost gave up, moments when you reacted poorly, moments when your faith wavered. But here is what the opposition underestimated: Grace Outrank's accusation. The reason Archangel Michael stands holding the envelope now is because the verdict has already been rendered. The arguments have been overruled. The objections have been dismissed. What tried to block you has been silenced. Yet during the dispute, you felt the tension. Have you noticed how before breakthrough, pressure intensifies? It feels like resistance grows stronger just when you think relief is near. That is because when the opposition senses an impending transfer, it makes a final attempt to delay it. Not because it can win, but because it hopes to exhaust you into surrender. Some of you were close to surrender. You thought about settling for less. You considered accepting instability as permanent. You almost made peace with wandering. That is how subtle the resistance was. It did not always come as dramatic chaos. Sometimes it came as quiet discouragement, slow doubt, lingering frustration. But what was delayed was never denied. There were also external forces involved. People who misunderstood you. Situations that collapsed unexpectedly. Financial interruptions. Opportunities that vanished. You interpreted those as setbacks. But in many cases, they were strategic removals. Not everything that leaves you is loss. Some things are cleared to make room for what carries permanence. If certain doors had opened earlier, you would have been anchored in something temporary. If certain offers had succeeded, you might have missed what was designed to last. What felt like obstruction was often redirection. And then there were generational patterns. Some of you come from bloodlines marked by instability, constant moving, financial inconsistency, relational breakdowns, unfinished foundations. When you attempt to break patterns that have existed for decades, resistance surfaces. Not because you are weak, but because you are disrupting something that has long gone unchallenged. You are the one who said, "It stops with me." That declaration activated attention in the unseen realm. Because breaking cycles threaten systems that have operated comfortably. The instability that was normal in your lineage recognized you as a threat. And threats attract opposition. But here is the truth that changes everything. Cycles do not break because opposition is absent. They break because authority intervenes. Archangel Michael did not simply observe your struggle. He stood as defender. When accusations were presented, defense responded. When disqualification was suggested, authorization overruled it. The golden envelope is not only a blessing, it is proof that the case against you failed. The opposition attempted to delay you through fear. It tried to delay you through distraction. It tried to delay you through self-doubt. It tried to delay you through exhaustion. But it could not erase what was written. And here is something powerful. Sometimes delay was protection. There were moments when you wanted immediate relief, immediate answers, immediate ownership. But had it arrived then, you might not have been ready to sustain it. The delay refined you. It strengthened you and matured you. What felt like blockage was often preparation. The dispute is over now. That is why the envelope is in hand. That is why the instruction is urgent. Because once a verdict is finalized, transfer follows quickly. The opposition's voice grows quieter when enforcement begins. You may still hear faint echoes of doubt. You may still feel slight hesitation. But those are residual whispers, not active authority. The power to block this transfer has been revoked. The house was contested. Yes. The deed was argued. Yes. Your worthiness was questioned. Yes. But the final decision did not rest in accusation. It rested in covenant. And covenant has spoken. Now the path is clear. The obstruction has been removed. The resistance has weakened. The transfer stands uncontested. And as you hold this understanding, something inside you should begin to shift. The weight you carried was never meant to be permanent. The fight you felt was not meant to define you. It was only meant to precede establishment. The block has been lifted, and what was once disputed is now undeniably yours. And now the question becomes unavoidable. Why is it being released now? Why March 6th? Why not last year when you were crying out more intensely? Why not during the season when you felt you needed it most? Why not before the disappointments, before the exhaustion, before the nights of uncertainty? The answer is not random. The answer is timing. There is a difference between desire and readiness. There is a difference between wanting something and being positioned to sustain it. And heaven does not operate on emotional urgency. It operates on divine alignment. What is being handed to you now could not have been handed to the version of you that existed before. Look back carefully. A year ago, you may have had the passion, but not the discipline. 2 years ago, you may have had the vision, but not the stability. 3 years ago, you may have had the prayer, but not the endurance. The house represents permanence. Permanence requires maturity. And maturity is not formed in comfort. It is formed in process. You have been in process. The delays were not empty waiting rooms. They were classrooms. Every disappointment carved wisdom into you. Every closed door sharpened your discernment. Every betrayal strengthened your boundaries. Every silent season deepened your faith. You were not being ignored. You were being developed. And development always precedes delivery. There were internal adjustments that needed to happen before external establishment could occur. Your mindset had to shift from scarcity to stewardship. Your identity had to shift from striving to sonship, from proving to positioning. Your reactions had to mature. Your patience had to stretch. Because once you step into ownership, there is no room for instability within you. Heaven releases when you can carry what is released. That is why it is happening now. There hath been a quiet alignment in your life that you may not have even noticed. Certain distractions have fallen away. Certain relationships have repositioned. Certain desires have faded. You no longer crave what once consumed you. You no longer chase validation the same way. There is a steadiness forming inside you. That steadiness is readiness. And something else shifted in the unseen realm. The dispute that once surrounded your inheritance has concluded. The resistance that once argued hath been restrained. The timing that once required delay has reached fulfillment. There is a convergence happening. Your maturity and heaven's decree aligning at the same moment. This is what makes March 6th significant. It is not about superstition. It is about synchronization. Your growth has caught up with your promise. You might say, but I still feel imperfect. I still have weaknesses. Of course you do. Maturity does not mean flawlessness. It means stability. It means you no longer collapse under pressure. It means you no longer abandon your ground when challenged. It means you can hold what you receive without self-sabotage. The earlier version of you might have doubted the blessing once it arrived. You might have questioned whether it would last. You might have feared losing it. But now, something in you has settled. You are less reactive, more anchored, more aware. That is why the release is now. There were also external factors that had to align. People had to move. Circumstances had to shift. Certain doors had to close permanently so others could open permanently. If the house had been released earlier, you might have tried to carry old patterns into new territory. But now those patterns have weakened. Timing protects blessings from being mishandled. It may have felt cruel at moments. It may have felt like heaven was silent when you were desperate. But silence was not absence. It was orchestration. Pieces were moving behind scenes you could not see. Foundations were being poured beneath your feet while you thought nothing was happening. And now the foundation is solid. There is also something profound about now. When heaven says now, it means momentum follows. The long stretch of delay often gives way to sudden acceleration. What seems stuck begins to move quickly. What seemed impossible begins to align effortlessly. You are stepping into acceleration after endurance. The reason it feels sudden is because process is quiet but release is visible. For months, maybe years, growth was happening internally. And internal growth does not attract applause. It does not trend. It does not make noise. But when the release comes, it appears dramatic because no one saw the preparation, including you. Some of you underestimated how much you have grown. You judge yourself by your flaws instead of your progress. But heaven measures differently. Heaven sees resilience where you see weakness. Heaven sees perseverance where you see struggle. Heaven sees readiness where you still see questions. The release is not about perfection. It is about alignment. March 6 marks alignment. Your spirit aligned with endurance. Your character aligned with stability. Your environment aligned with opportunity. The unseen realm aligned with authorization. And when alignment reaches completion, release becomes inevitable. This is not late. It is exact. If it had come sooner, you might have lost it. If it had come later, you might have settled for less. But now, you stand at the intersection of readiness and permission. The golden envelope is not arriving prematurely. It is arriving precisely. And as you prepare to open it, understand this. Timing is not just about when something starts. It is about when you are strong enough to sustain what starts. And you are stronger now than you realize. Now we must step into one of the most humbling truths connected to this golden envelope. The cost of what you are receiving was paid, but not by you. That statement alone challenges pride, challenges logic, it even challenges comfort. Because deep within human nature is the desire to say, I earned this. I worked for this. I deserve this. But the deed inside this envelope carries your name without carrying your payment. And that reveals something sacred about how heaven operates. There are blessings that are rewards. And then there are blessings that are exchanges. This house you didn't pay for represents an exchange. Somewhere in the spiritual equation, a price was satisfied so that your name could be written freely on that deed. You are stepping into something you could not afford with effort alone. Not because you lack discipline, not because you lack faith, but because certain dimensions of stability require a greater covering than human striving can produce. Think about your journey. There were moments when you tried to force doors open, moments when you overextended yourself, moments when you exhausted your energy trying to secure what felt unstable. You put in the work. You prayed. You prayed. You sacrificed. And still, it did not fully settle. because the final cost of this level of establishment was never designed to be carried by your shoulders. This is where heaven's economy stands in contrast to Earth's system. On Earth, ownership is transactional. In heaven, inheritance is relational. On Earth, the one who pays possesses. In heaven, the one who belongs inherits. You belong. That is why your name is on the envelope. There is something profoundly humbling about receiving what you cannot claim credit for. It silences arrogance. It dissolves comparison. It removes competition. Because if you did not pay for it, you cannot boast about it. And if you cannot boast about it, you cannot weaponize it against others. This house will not elevate you into pride. It will anchor you in gratitude. And gratitude is the posture that sustains blessing. Some of you struggled with control. You wanted to calculate outcomes. You wanted guarantees. You wanted to feel like you were steering the process. But the exchange that made this possible required surrender. It required letting go of the illusion that you are the sole architect of your destiny. You parted through faith, but you did not fund the final outcome. There is also another dimension to this exchange. In order for something greater to be placed in your hand, something lesser had to be released from it. Old habits, old attachments, old versions of yourself. You thought you were losing when certain things fell away. You thought you were sacrificing without return. But what if those releases were part of the exchange? You let go of environments that limited you. You walked away from relationships that drained you. You surrendered opportunities that were misaligned. You gave up comfort zones that felt familiar but small. Those were not empty losses. They were transactions in preparation for something larger. Exchange is not always visible in the moment. Sometimes it looks like subtraction. Sometimes it feels like reduction. But behind the scenes, the equation was balancing in your favor. What you surrendered created capacity. What you released made room. What you outgrew cleared space for establishment. The deed represents more than property. It represents completion of exchange. There is also a deeper spiritual reality here. The reason you could never fully pay for this house is because its value extends beyond finances. It carries peace. It carries identity. It carries generation of reckon. It carries protection. You cannot purchase those with overtime hours or personal ambition. Those come through covenant. And covenant always involves a cost beyond human currency. This truth should not intimidate you. It should steady you. Because if you did not pay for it, you are not responsible for sustaining it through fear. You are responsible for stewarding it through faith. There is a difference. If you believed you bought it alone, you would constantly worry about losing it. You would obsess over maintaining it. You would operate from anxiety. But when you understand that the ultimate cost was covered by divine provision, you rest differently. You steward wisely, but you do not panic. The exchange also protects you from comparison. When others look at your life and wonder how you stepped into stability, you will not have a resume to defend yourself with. You will have testimony, and testimony carries humility. It says, I walked through fire. I endured delay. I surrendered control. And what stands before me is grace. Grace is not weakness. Grace is empowerment without arrogance. This house will not isolate you from others. It will position you to help others. Because when you receive through grace, you give through compassion. You remember what instability felt like. You remember the wandering. You remember the waiting. And that memory keeps your heart soft. The cost was paid. The exchange is complete. The deed is ready. But here is the question you must answer internally. Can you accept something this significant without trying to earn it retroactively? Can you resist the urge to overwork just to prove you deserve it? Can you receive without self-sabotage? Because sometimes the hardest part is not fighting for a blessing. It is accepting it. The golden envelope is still in your reach. The name is still written. The deed is still secured. The exchange has already been settled. All that remains is your willingness to open your hands and receive what you could never purchase, but were always meant to inherit. Before you open this golden envelope, there are instructions you must understand. Because not every blessing is mishandled through rebellion. Some are mishandled through carelessness. And what is being placed before you is too sacred, too strategic, too weighty to approach casually. The instruction was clear. Open it immediately. But immediate does not mean impulsive. It means responsive. It means obedient. It means you do not let fear negotiate what faith has already authorized. Your posture in this moment matters. First, approach with gratitude. Gratitude protects what pride would corrupt. When you recognize that you did not pay for this house, your heart softens. You do not stand over the blessing as if you conquered it. You kneel in awareness that you were entrusted with it. Gratitude creates stability within you before stability manifests around you. Second, approach with faith, not fragile hope, light-headed optimism. Faith. Faith says, if my name is written, I will not question the ink. Faith says, if heaven authorized this transfer, I will not second-guess the timing. Faith refuses to shrink back when something feels larger than comfort. Because make no mistake, this will feel larger than comfort. Some of you have grown used to managing less. You know how to survive. You know how to adapt. But ownership requires a different mindset than survival. Survival prepares for loss. Ownership prepares for longevity. And when you open this envelope, you are stepping into longevity. That requires mental adjustment. Do not open it with suspicion. Do not open it with fear of loss. Do not open it waiting for something to go wrong. Those mindsets belong to old seasons. This new season demands expectation. Expectation that what hath been defended will remain defended. Expectation that what has been transferred will remain secured. There is also a warning hidden inside the urgency. If someone ignores a transfer long enough, confusion can set in. Doubt can create delay. Delay can invite unnecessary complications. The instruction to open it immediately is about alignment. When heaven releases, your response must align quickly so momentum is not slowed by hesitation. You have hesitated before. You have second-guessed opportunities. You have overanalyzed open doors. You have talked yourself out of stepping forward. That pattern must end here. This moment is not asking for analysis. It is asking for agreement. Agreement activates enforcement. When you open the envelope in faith, you are signaling readiness. You are saying, I accept what has been settled. And acceptance triggers movement. Doors align. Resources shift. Confirmation follows. But if you stand staring at the envelope, waiting to feel perfectly confident, you may delay what is already authorized. This is why your internal alignment is crucial. Before you open it, release resentment from past delays. Release comparison with others. Release the narrative that says you are always last. Those narratives cannot cross into ownership. They belong to wandering seasons, not settled ones. Your mind must move before your feet move. And here is something deeply important. Do not open it alone in spirit. Open it in awareness that you are covered. that what is being handed to you comes with protection, that this is not a fragile promise. It is a fortified one. Some of you are afraid of visibility. You fear that stepping into establishment will attract scrutiny. But understand this. The same authority that defended this transfer will defend its manifestation. You are not exposed. You are covered. The urgency is not about pressure. It is about alignment with a divine window. There are moments in life when opportunity and readiness meet. Those moments must be embraced fully, not cautiously. And let me give you this retention reminder, because what is about to be revealed next will change how you see the moment you open that envelope forever. When you break the seal, you are not just receiving property. You are triggering a chain reaction that alters generational patterns. What follows will explain why this opening echoes beyond your own lifetime. You will be glad you positioned your heart correctly for what comes next. Now, before we move forward, seal this moment with agreement. Type "I open" in faith in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 824 is now activated. This is your declaration that hesitation no longer leads you. This is your signal that you trust what has been written. This is your alignment with the release. As you prepare to open the golden envelope, remember, gratitude guards it. Faith activates it. Obedience accelerates it. And you are standing at the edge of acceleration. And as you stand at this sacred edge, hear this clearly. This word is traveling like fire across dry ground, igniting hope in hearts that were close to giving up. When you sow through super thanks, become a member, or release a seed through the PayPal link in the description, or even through the QR code appearing on your screen, you are pouring oil into this flame so it keeps burning for others. The Lord declares, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest will not cease, and that promise breathes over your giving right now. I am asking you to step into this moment as a co-laborer in the harvest of stability being released through this message. Do not treat your seed as small in the spirit. It becomes a key that unlocks doors for souls you may never meet. There is urgency in this hour. Obedience moves quickly when heaven speaks. As you give, may your own house be strengthened, your own foundation reinforced, and your own harvest accelerated. Act now and let your generosity echo in eternity. And now let me speak directly to you, because there are specific signs that confirm this message is not random. It is for you. The first sign is this: you have been praying for stability more than success. Notice the shift. There was a time when your prayers focused on opportunity, advancement, visibility. But recently, your deepest cry hath been simpler. Lord, let things settle. Let there be consistency. Let there be peace. That prayer did not come from ambition. It came from exhaustion. And when your desire shifts from elevation to establishment, it signals readiness for ownership. The second sign is repetition. Have you been dreaming about houses, doors, hallways, moving from one room to another? Even if the dreams seemed unclear, the imagery was consistent. Houses represent identity and covering. Keys represent access. Doors represent transition. When those symbols begin appearing repeatedly, it is often because your spirit is being prepared before your reality shifts. The third sign is an unusual calm in the middle of unfinished situations. Externally, everything may not look complete. You may still be in transition. Yet internally, there is a steadiness you cannot explain. A quiet confidence. A subtle expectation that something is about to click into place. That calm is not denial. It is alignment. It is the stillness that comes when a verdict has already been decided in your favor, even if the manifestation has not fully unfolded. The fourth sign is separation. Certain relationships have drifted. Certain environments no longer fit. Certain conversations feel foreign. It is not that you hate anyone. It is that you have outgrown spaces built for instability. You feel pulled toward structure, clarity, grounding. That pull is not random. It is preparation for settlement. The fifth sign is heightened sensitivity to waste. You have become more protective of your time, your energy, your finances. You are less willing to pour into things that do not build something lasting. That shift reveals maturity. Owners think differently than wanderers. Owners invest with intention. Owners build with foresight. If you feel that internal change, it is because your mindset is transitioning into stewardship. And then there is the strongest sign of all. This message stirred something in you immediately. Not casual interest. Not mild curiosity. But recognition. As if something inside you whispered, "This is about me." That internal witness is significant. Because when heaven speaks directly to your season, your spirit responds before your mind fully processes it. But here is something crucial. Recognition requires response. If you sense this word is yours, do not stay passive. Engage with it. Like this video as an act of agreement. Subscribe to this channel if you are stepping into a season of divine establishment. Share this message with someone who has been in a long season of instability and needs to hear that settlement is near. And in the comments, declare boldly, "My house is being established." Your declaration is not performance. It is partnership. When you speak an agreement, you reinforce alignment. Silence often sustains doubt. Declaration strengthens expectation. Here is another sign that many overlook. Resistance intensified recently. Before major shifts, distractions often increase. Unexpected frustrations surface. Small conflicts feel magnified. It is as if something is attempting to disturb your focus right before breakthrough. That disturbance is not proof that nothing is happening. It is often evidence that something significant is very close. Pressure increases before release. If you have felt stretched lately, emotionally, financially, mentally, do not interpret that as regression. Interpret it as transition. When you move from wandering to ownership, there is a tightening of preparation, final adjustments, final tests of patience, final clarifications of priorities. And here is a deeper sign. You no longer want temporary fixes. Quick money no longer excites you the way stable provision does. Surface-level relationships no longer satisfy you the way covenant connection does. Short-term comfort no longer distracts you from long-term foundation. That internal shift reveals that you are ready for something enduring. This message is not for everyone at the same level. It is for those who have endured enough instability to appreciate permanence. It is for those who have felt the weight of delay but did not completely abandon hope. It is for those who are tired of wandering and ready to plant. If that is you, then you are not listening by accident. And here is your retention reminder. Because what we are about to step into next explains what actually happens the moment you open that envelope. Once the seal breaks, the transfer does more than change your circumstances. It initiates enforcement in ways you did not expect. The next revelation will show you how heaven moves when ownership is activated. You have seen the signs. You have felt the stirring. You have recognized the shift. And now the only question is whether you will respond boldly to what is already aligning around you. Because when recognition meets response, manifestation follows. Now we arrive at the moment everything has been building toward. What actually happens when you open the golden envelope? A seal breaks. The paper unfolds. Your name stands there in undeniable clarity. And in that instant, something shifts, not only around you, but within you. Because opening the envelope is not symbolic curiosity. It is legal acceptance. It is agreement with what has already been authorized. The moment you open it, the transfer becomes active. Before you opened it, the deed had your name written on it. After you open it, the ownership moves into operation. There is a difference between something being prepared for you and something being activated through you. Breaking the seal signals readiness, and readiness triggers enforcement. Enforcement means that what has been decided in the unseen realm begins rearranging things in the visible realm. This is where many are caught off guard. Because when ownership activates, changes follow quickly. Some doors close permanently. Others open unexpectedly. Conversations shift. Opportunities align. You may notice certain obstacles dissolving without the struggle you once experienced. That is enforcement at work. Heaven does not transfer lightly. It secures what it transfers. Chains that once restricted you begin to loosen. Financial patterns that felt cyclical begin to break. Mindsets rooted in fear begin to lose authority. You may not even realize how bound certain areas of your life were until you feel the lightness that follows activation. Opening the envelope signals that you are no longer waiting outside your promise. You are stepping inside it. And stepping inside changes perspective. When you were outside, you wondered if it would happen. You questioned timing. You battled doubt. But once you step inside ownership, the questions shift. You begin asking, how do I steward this? How do I build on this foundation? How do I protect what has been entrusted to me? Ownership produces responsibility, not pressure, but purpose. There is also a generational shift that occurs at the moment of activation. Remember, this house represents more than walls. It represents correction of instability patterns. When you open the envelope, you are not just accepting a personal blessing. You are altering a lineage. What once cycled through your family begins to lose its pattern. The insecurity that defined past seasons weakens. The financial inconsistency that felt inherited begins to stabilize. The emotional wandering that marked relationships begins to find grounding. This is why the opposition tried to delay it. Because once activated, it impacts more than one life. You may also experience a sudden clarity about your direction. Things that felt confusing begin to make sense. Decisions that once felt overwhelming become straightforward. It is not that every detail is revealed instantly. It is that the fog lifts. When ownership activates, identity solidifies. And when identity solidifies, direction follows naturally. Another thing happens when you open the envelope. Confidence shifts from striving to assurance. Before activation, you work to prove. After activation, you move because you know. The difference is subtle but powerful. You are no longer trying to secure your place. Your place has been secured. That internal assurance changes how you speak, how you plan, how you respond to challenges. Challenges will still come. Storms still test houses. But the difference is foundation. A house built on covenant stands differently than a tent built on circumstance. When resistance attempts to reappear, it no longer finds you wandering. It finds you established. There is also divine reinforcement that follows activation. Once you open the envelope, it is as if additional resources are dispatched. Favor aligns. Protection intensifies. Strategic connections appear. Not because you are chasing them, but because ownership attracts alignment. When your position shifts, your environment adjusts to support it. Some of you will notice acceleration shortly after this moment. Opportunities that once required excessive effort begin to flow more naturally. Invitations arise. Solutions surface. It may feel sudden, but it is not random. It is enforcement unfolding in real time. However, there is one key truth you must hold on to. Activation requires maintenance through faith. Opening the envelope is agreement. Living inside the promise is ongoing trust. You cannot revert to old mindsets once ownership begins. Doubt cannot be allowed to dominate again. Fear cannot be given authority again. You must live as someone established. Because you are. And here is something deeply important. Once you open the envelope, there is no returning to wandering. Even if you face temporary challenges, you will never again be who you were before activation. Something irreversible happens in your spirit. You recognize your position. You recognize your covering. You recognize your authority. The seal breaks. The deed is read. The transfer activates. Enforcement moves. Identity solidifies. Generational patterns shift. This is what happens when you open it. It is not just a document unfolding. It is destiny aligning. And once alignment begins, momentum follows. Now that the envelope has been opened and the transfer activated, a new season begins, and this season will not resemble the one you just walked out of. You are no longer spiritually renting space in someone else's atmosphere. You are no longer adjusting yourself to survive environments that were never built for you. You have stepped into ownership, and ownership changes everything about how you move. The first shift is internal. You begin to think like someone established. Before, you planned cautiously because you were unsure how long things would last. You hesitated to build because instability had trained you to expect interruption. But now, something inside you settles. You begin making decisions with longevity in mind. You plan further ahead. You invest more intentionally. You speak with greater clarity. Because deep down, you know you are no longer temporary. There is a powerful psychological freedom that comes with that realization. When you no longer see yourself as passing through, you begin to plan differently. You cultivate relationships differently. You steward resources differently. You protect your peace differently. You are not just occupying space. You are establishing territory. This new season moves you from overlooked to anchored. There were times when you felt invisible. Times when your effort went unnoticed. Times when you questioned whether your faithfulness mattered. But establishment always reveals what wandering conceal. Now your stability becomes visible. Now your consistency becomes evident. Now the quiet endurance you carried begins to show fruit. And fruit attracts recognition. Not recognition for applause, but recognition for alignment. People begin to sense that something about you has changed. You are calmer, less reactive, more grounded. You do not chase validation the way you once did. You are not as easily shaken by opinions or temporary setbacks. That is what establishment looks like. You have moved from delay to dominion. Dominion does not mean control over others. It means authority over your own ground. It means you no longer let fear dictate your decisions. You no longer let past disappointments define your expectations. You stand with confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because your foundation is secure. And here is something beautiful about this season. Peace becomes your default setting. Before, peace felt conditional and dependent on circumstances. If finances were stable, you felt calm. If relationships were smooth, you felt secure. But now, peace flows from identity, not environment. You know who you are. You know what has been secured. You know what was defended. and that awareness stabilizes you even when external winds attempt to blow. There will still be challenges. Every house faces weather, but storms do not frighten owners the same way they frighten wanderers. A wanderer fears displacement. An owner cuts the structure. This new season also carries increase, but not chaotic increase. Structured increase. Growth that builds instead of overwhelms. Opportunities that align instead of distract. Resources that sustain instead of scatter. Because when heaven establishes you, it does not just hand you keys, it hands you capacity. You will notice that your discernment sharpens in this season. You quickly recognize what belongs and what does not. You are less tempted by distractions. You are less impressed by temporary offers. Your standards elevate because your identity has elevated. From renter to owner. From surviving to stewarding. From wanderer to rooted. This shift may even surprise you at moments. You may pause and realize that something that once triggered anxiety no longer controls you. Situations that once felt overwhelming now feel manageable. That is the evidence of internal transformation catching up with external establishment. There is also a relational shift in this season. Ownership attracts alignment. The right people feel comfortable around stability. Those who thrived on chaos may drift away. Do not fear that drift. Not everyone is assigned to your settled season. Some people were companions in wandering but cannot accompany you into establishment. That is not rejection. It is repositioning. As you step into this new chapter, remember that ownership requires maintenance. Continue nurturing gratitude. Continue strengthening faith. Continue protecting your foundation through wise decisions. Establishment is not fragile, but it must be honored. And here is something powerful. You are becoming an example. Others who are still wandering will look at you and see hope. They will see that stability is possible, that cycles can break, that inheritance can manifest. Your life becomes quiet testimony that delay does not cancel destiny. This is not just a personal upgrade. It is a visible sign that heaven keeps its word. The season you are entering is marked by clarity, protection, and sustained growth. It is marked by confidence without arrogance. It is marked by peace without passivity. It is marked by authority without aggression. You are living under divine covering now. And as this season unfolds, you will look back at the wandering and understand why it could never define you permanently. It prepared you, but it was never your destination. You have crossed from temporary into established. You have moved from unsettled into secured. You have stepped into what was written. And this is only the beginning of what ownership will produce in your life. Now we arrive at the final declaration. Today on March 6th, Archangel Michael stood holding a golden envelope with your name on it. Inside was the deed to a house you didn't pay for. You have walked through the meaning. You have understood the battle. You have recognized the timing. You have seen the exchange. You have opened the envelope. And now you stand established. This is not a motivational story. This is a spiritual marker. There are days in life that divide seasons. Before and after. Wandering and settling. Delay and dominion. March 6th marks that dividing line for you. Not because of superstition. Not because of emotion. But because something has shifted in the unseen and manifested in the seen. The house represents stability. The deed represents legality. The golden envelope represents covenant. And your name written on it represents identity. Nothing about this was accidental. The battle that surrounded it did not defeat you. The delay that tested you did not define you. The accusations that attempted to disqualify you did not prevail. Grace signed your name. Authority defended your case. Timing aligned your release. And now you stand in establishment. Let this truth settle deep within you. What has been given cannot be easily taken. What hath been written cannot be casually erased. What hath been defended cannot be easily overturned. You are not stepping into something fragile. You are stepping into something fortified. There will still be days that require faith. There will still be moments that require wisdom. But you will not return to wandering. A chapter has closed. Even when challenges arise, you will face them from a place of ownership, not insecurity. This is your assurance. You are covered. You are authorized. You are established. The golden envelope was never about paper alone. It was about promise. It was about identity. It was about generational correction. It was about rest after resistance. And as you move forward from this day, carry yourself differently. Speak differently. Decide differently. Build differently. Because you are no longer temporary. You are planted. You are no longer striving to belong. You are positioned. Let this be your declaration moving forward. I will not shrink back into instability. I will not sabotage what hath been secured. I will not question what heaven has confirmed. I will steward what has been entrusted to me with gratitude and faith. This is not the end of your story. It is the stabilization of it. There are rooms within this house you have not yet explored. There are blessings within this establishment you have not yet experienced. There are dimensions of peace you have not yet fully felt. But now you will explore them from ownership, not from longing. The wandering season taught you endurance. The delay taught you patience. A battle taught you resilience. But the house teaches you peace. And peace will now be your foundation. As we close, seal this with agreement. Type IT is established in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 1294 is now activated. Carry the declaration boldly. Let it echo in your spirit long after this message ends. Let it anchor you when old doubts attempt to resurface. Let it remind you that you are not who you were before this transfer. Today was marked. The envelope was delivered. The deed was opened. The transfer was activated. The house is yours. Walk in it with confidence. Live in it with gratitude. Guard it with wisdom. Expand in it with faith. You are established. And as this word settles into your spirit, understand something sacred. This message is not meant to stop with you. It is a river meant to reach others who are still wandering, still doubting, still waiting for their envelope. When you release a super thanks, become a member, or so through the PayPal link in the description, or the QR code you see on your screen. You are not funding a platform. You are fueling a harvest of souls. The Lord declares, those who sow in tears will reap in joy, and that promise breathes over every seed you release in obedience. I am speaking directly to you now. Stand with this mission and become a builder of houses for others through your giving. Do not treat this as casual generosity. Treat it as prophetic alignment. As you sow into the spread of this word, may your own house overflow, may your foundation strengthen, and may increase chase you down. Act now and seal your obedience with action. Go forward in peace. You are established.